You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
If you have a message that you'd love to share with more people and you get really excited about the idea and the possibility, maybe having a best-selling book or even having a TEDx talk that you've been accepted for and have produced, then stay tuned because today's episode, we're talking all about the pathways to becoming a TEDx speaker, some insights into what makes your pitch accepted so that you can actually do a TEDx talk, the absolute latest requirements that they have right now, because it has changed over the last 18 months, then this episode is something that you're going to absolutely love. So stay tuned. It's coming right up. Now, joining me today on the podcast to talk to you all about that pathway to TEDx and having a best-selling book is Sara Connell, who is the founder of the Thought Leader Academy. She's a 5-time best-selling author herself, and now she helps coaches, experts, entrepreneurs to scale impact and create 6 to 7 figures in their business by becoming best-selling authors and in-demand TEDx speakers themselves. She has been featured on Oprah, in New York Times, Good Morning America, Today, Forbes, wow, all the big brands, Entrepreneur Magazine. She is an absolute gem, really amazing to listen to. And she shares so many insights on, the real truth behind what it takes to get on the TEDx stage. And guess what? It's actually not as scary as you might think. And they are really big on real humans, authentic humans. You don't have to be a big stage speaker already, somebody who's got a polished, pitch perfect delivery, because that's not what it's all about, as Sara is about to share with you. So without further ado, let me play this interview for you. Make sure you stay through to the end, because while we get into a discussion about AI and how that's impacting people's trust, and also what the industry is doing to ensure that people are not producing AI, that people are not publishing books produced by AI. So make sure you stay for that one. It's a really great conversation about when to use AI in these sort of processes and when not to use it, and how you can absolutely leverage the ability to build more trust through having your own book and that TEDx talk.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and over the last 25 years in marketing and business, I've helped many brands to launch, scale, and grow, with some of them becoming multi-billion-dollar companies. I'm here to inspire you to get out of your own way and create a profitable, fulfilling business while living the lifestyle you really desire, without all the hustle. So I bring you She's the Business podcast, a unique blend of strategies, tactics, mindset, health, and spirituality, literally everything you need to be the successful leader of your dream business. Made by women, for women, this is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
So I'm here today with the lovely Sara Connell, who is the CEO, the chief person in charge of Thought Leader Academy. Welcome, Sara. How are you? So good to be on the podcast today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, well, I'm really excited to talk to you all about, TEDx and, obviously the pathway to TEDx, because I think it's always that thing that we think about, like, wow, it would be amazing to do that one day, someday. Is it even something I could do? I think we all put it up on a pedestal, and you are clearly an expert in that. But before we dive into all of that good conversation, could you give us a bit of an background as to what your business is, who do you serve, what you do?
Absolutely. So I'm excited to dive into all TEDx and all things. Yes. So I, as you said, founder of and CEO of Thought Leader Academy, which is really an incredible community and process that we've created to help particularly women, visionaries, women experts, entrepreneurs, coaches, leaders, best-selling author, TEDx speaker. That's sort of the magic combo. And then you get the triple threat by adding your business behind the book or behind the, whether someone has an existing business, then we use that thought leadership to scale and help them monetize to 7 figures a year. Or if someone's, maybe starting a new movement, if you think of it as like starting a movement, and then it's what would be that thing behind the book and the speaking that would, people want to run events, do retreats, have a coaching program, a consultancy, looking at that piece. So we're really taking a year to help someone put those thought leader assets in place and either scale an existing business or launch a new thought leader business around that work. So I love it. I'm excited to get out of bed every morning and get to work with these incredible leaders. And it is just such an honor to see people who are already, those of you listening to this, you're an expert in your niche and your craft. And then it's just like letting you get that, I call it even like 100x visibility, right? Viral visibility, because 10x is even too small for what this world is expecting of us now, right? I looked at my brand and I thought, yeah, it's not a 10x, it's a 100x, right?
Amazing. Yeah, I was going to ask, how would someone know that they're ready for this? And, because you did mention maybe you've got an existing business or potentially even an existing book or something like that. There seem to be a lot of different starting points happening there, but how would someone listening feel like, oh, yeah, I could do this even now, like now would be a great time?
The common denominator for most of the people that I get to have the pleasure of working with is that you've hit this place where you're meant for more. Like, that you get incredible results in the work that you do. And there's that feeling of like, with this ecosystem of people that know us, right? And I know I hit that point, and so many, and so you're already awesome at what you do. You know that, right? But you know that not enough people know about you. Not enough people are aware. So, whatever niche you're in, health, wellness, money coaching, relationships, whatever it is, parenting, you've got this message that's meant, and people feel it either like, I know I have that book in me, or I see myself on the bigger stage. And the point at which you just don't know how to get there. Like you said, it sort of feels like a someday sort of fantasy. And so our goal is to be that bridge and make that as easy and to fast track and accelerate that process. Because, when I was putting all this work together, I was figuring it out like the machete through the jungle. Like, okay, I got to figure out how to do a book. And then I had to figure out how to go speak and get on the TEDx stage. And it took a long time and it cost a lot of money. And because I was piecemealing it all. And so a lot of our clients, I started with doing books with people. And then people said, look, I don't want to, I was sending them to a different person for speaking, a different person for TEDx, can you just put it in one place, right? And that's really our goal, is like, let's do what took me 10 years and $100,000. Let's do that in a year for a fraction of that amount. And so that's really, I think the way we know is that there's a yearning and a sometimes even a pain at feeling like we haven't let all the music in us out. We haven't made our mark. It's really a lot about our legacy, right? It's like, what are those things that are going to live beyond us, and that's what's cool about books and other, types of thought leadership that we can, that goes beyond us, right? It can like reach people across the world that we'd never reach.
So true. That feeling that it's like, well, there's so many people that I could help and so many people who need to hear this, who maybe, thinking about things in a different way, and you just want to be like, I just want to share this with you. And it can feel like it's almost impossible when you're just there sitting behind the screen doing all the social media and everything that everybody tells you to do, but yet, it's just not having that bigger reach, that bigger impact. That's awesome. What's your background? Like, why did you start on the journey of even doing this for yourself in the first place? What was your background before that?
Absolutely. And it's funny because really my TEDx talk that I did, the most recent one is really about this in a certain aspects that'll kind of tie together where we're going to go. What happened for me, just a really as succinct version as I can give, is that I wanted to be a writer when I was young. I would read books that I loved, all the, the Brontes and, all these books. And I would, and they were like, I want to do this, and I had that desire. And most of the people I work with have zero desire. They actually don't want to write. That's not, they want to want to be visible and help people with their mission. And so, but I was someone who really wanted to. I did journals and wrote stories and poems, and they were terrible poems, bad story, but that's the start, right? But I had this thing in my mind because I watched movies and read books about kids that became authors. And in those stories, what always happened is a teacher took the child aside and said, "You're special. You're meant to be a writer." They give them secret books. And, that's how it always happened in all the movies and the books.
Yeah.
And when that happened for me, like there was no teacher that took me aside and sort of gave me that benediction or whatever. And so I didn't understand at the time, but I had given away the power. I thought I needed permission from someone. And I don't know if anyone listening has had that, whether you felt like you needed someone to tell you you're allowed or you're good enough. And so I thought, I guess I'm not allowed to be a writer, because that didn't happen. I had no idea consciously that that's what was going on. So I went to university. I read other people's books. I, went and got a job in advertising, which was sort of like adjacent. And, and unfortunately, that job took place in the height of the Me Too era. It was a really abusive environment. And I spiraled. I was, a single woman supporting myself. I didn't know, I felt trapped in that job. And one day I was in an airport and I saw a book, and it wasn't by a famous person. It was a woman named Margaret Bullitt Jonas, who wrote a book called Holy Hunger. And I read the book just on a whim. And by the time I finished, I read it all in one night. And by the time I finished reading, I said, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm going to leave this job. And I credit that book as saving my life, to be honest. And when that happened, I said, I'm going to pay this gift forward. Like, no matter what, I'm probably not good enough. It probably won't work, but I am going to do this thing, this thing inside me, Elizabeth Gilbert calls the big magic. You all know if you've felt it. And I just said, this job's going to kill me. I just knew if I stayed on that path, I was already having a mental health crisis, physical health crisis. I was like, this is going nowhere good. And so I did. And that one book changed the trajectory of everything. And so when I had the incredible fortune of, not overnight, but getting my first book on Oprah and in the New York Times and, these big, things that as writers were like, so great. I just said, I am going to spend the rest of my life paying this gift forward through helping other people. Like, I want someone's TEDx talk on YouTube the day that someone's having that crisis, right? Their book in the airport bookstore. And so that's how it happened. And I've done it ever since. And it has been the greatest gift of my lifetime to get to champion the missions and movements of incredible people that need to be known outside their little sphere.
Yeah. I think so many people can relate to that feeling of, just being in that job and being like, it is just going nowhere. And I was always on the in-house side. So, being in an agency and advertising, wow, they used to work those people to the absolute bone. And I would say in-house was a little bit better. There was a little bit more care of employees, but gosh, I used to see what would go on, and I can absolutely relate to the terrible place that you must have been in. What was that first book about? I'm just curious, because you're like, I read a book and it made you suddenly believe, hey, I can do this. I can actually write a book. I think where most people get stuck is like, what am I going to write it on? Like, what is the thing? Like, do you already know your expertise then?
Of course. You know what? I didn't at all. But what happened is that, so I had no idea, right? Like, that's the fun part of anyone listening. We don't have to really know the how. If there's that desire, I'm a brain science person. So it's like, desire is like a causative energy. It's like, that's the sign. There's no other position needed. Permission, like if you know you have that desire for whatever it is, you're starting your business, your book, whatever, like that's the thing. And so that says, you've got it in you, right? You wouldn't have the desire if you didn't have the capability in my experience. So, the book I read that inspired me was this, this book I said called Holy Hunger. And really it was just this one woman describing how she had faced these traumas, like I was sort of facing my own version. And then, and she also, like I had done, got into like a really serious eating disorder. That was kind of where that mental, physical health, crisis happened. And she just shared how she got better. And I just realized, this is killing me. Wow. What am I doing here? Yeah. But it also showed me that she's not famous. It wasn't, Brene Brown or, it was just a woman sharing her story. And that's what a great TED Talk, a great book can do. And I think for everyone watching this, those of you that have a business, right, it's going one step further and really doing a thought leader book, right? But that's going to inspire someone to like want to work further with you and take action. So a little different than only our story. It's like our story plus our methodology, our way of doing something, our steps or whatever it is that we're an expert in. So and then my first book that I wrote was ironically not on business or anything yet. It was a memoir. It was a 7-year fertility journey that my husband and I took to have our son, which is a whole other episode in and of itself, because my mother at age 60 became our surrogate. So if anyone wants to wrap your mind around that.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Incredible. And she's doing great. My son just turned 14. So, I mean, everyone, it all worked out, but it was this sort of miracle that happened in our family. And that was sort of the initial, book. And then since then I've written mostly nonfiction, more in the space of thought leadership and women's empowerment and, women's wealth building, all that stuff. And so, but that was the first book. And it was just like, really, again, like this woman had done for me and shared her story. It was our story. And we've been so blessed to have, families from around the world, thousands of families say, I didn't realize, all the different, we've had people write to us that had cousin surrogates and friend surrogates and, aunt and mother-in-laws. And I mean, all these wonderful ways that a family can come together.
Yeah, that's incredible. So tell me a little bit about when was your first TEDx speaking spot and how did you get it? Like, what was the kind of shift that from writing your first book? Were there multiple books before you did the TEDx, or how did that happen? Yeah.
There were. And here's what I'm going to share my path to TEDx. And then I'm also going to give, for anyone listening, TEDx has changed a lot in the last 18 months. And so I want to give people like just what you need to know if you want to do one now, because it's a little bit different. There's 2 things that I want everyone to have because it has changed a bit since I, coach people. So what's funny is I coached probably 10 clients to get TEDx talks before I ever did mine, because I was really clear that I didn't want to try it until I had something really, really specific that was really felt aligned with TEDx. Something to think about. It's very different than a keynote or than another type of talk that we might give. TED, if you follow the brand ever, is about ideas worth spreading. And they do not want someone to come in and say, in fact, they will not choose us if we come in and say, oh, I give this talk all the time, or I have a book on this. Like, they actually do not want you to do something that you've done anywhere else. That's something really important. And so the reason I share that about my journey is I had a look as a coach helping people, like what did it take to get them a talk? Because some of my clients were very ready and they kept saying, when are you going to do yours? And I said, when I get really clear on what the talk is. And then one day it was like, I always get great ideas on walks. Like I'll go walking. I love to be in nature. And then suddenly I call it a download. Like it just kind of comes in. And I said, oh, you know what? I really want to go back to my roots and do mine on how one book can save a life. That's what I really wanted to do the talk on, because that was at the core of why I do what I do. And that just felt like the talk I wanted to give. And TED. So step 1, if anyone wants to do a TEDx talk, the first thing to know is that all the TED events are run by volunteers. So it's not the most organized. I mean, so grateful for these wonderful human beings that do this, but it's not like you're going to a corporation where a very systematized, every event has its own way of applying and they're not all centralized in one. Like people that coach with us, like we actually paid someone to create a database of every event and have all of it in like a spreadsheet. So it's easier to apply. It takes an average of 80 applications to be selected for TEDx. Now,
wow.
Some of our clients book it. We had someone, she did hers last month and it took 1 application. Like they were interested in her idea. It was a done deal. Some have been 19, some have been 100. Okay. So we tell people, if you're going to apply and you don't have a connection already, someone organizing an event, it may be, now many of the applications are the same. So you don't have to write 80 different applications necessarily, but you do want to put your whole topic through the TEDx lens. And we have a resource if anyone wants to DM me after, like I analyzed the top 100 talks, like what were the titles, what were they looking for? So it's number 1, don't pitch something and say you've done it a million times, because they won't like that. Number two, you want to put it through the TEDx brand, your unique topic, but through their lens. So it would look at the titles of the top talks. It's a lot, how schools kill creativity, Simon Sinek, or, why it's not about how you look from a formal model, or like there's a vibe. There's a TEDx vibe. So when I work with people, I look at taking their expertise and then putting it through the TEDx vibe so that we can make an application that would be attractive, to the TED, the TED community. So I had helped a lot of people do theirs, and I kind of knew what I needed to hit for my application. And so it was great fun. And I'm glad I waited until I had a talk that was just exactly what felt like I could be a gift to the TED universe. So that was really fun. And then we kind of carried on, helping our clients do them. Now, why do one? It's like the credential of best-selling author. It's another check of it's something value. I mean, people ascribe it's like if you've written a best-selling book or you've done a TEDx talk, you're seen as an authority. You're seen as it goes on the main TED site. So people search your name and TED, your talk comes up, and it's got the logo and all that, it's cool optics, the kind of credibility booster. If someone's deciding between you and another course creator, another coach, sometimes that can tip someone in your direction. They feel, so it's a sales asset. You can use it in your sales process. Someone's had a conversation. They're thinking about working with you. It was great to meet. Here's my TEDx talk, a little bit more about what we do. Cool, right? So it's great. But I also
kind of says that you've got something to of value, because if you were chosen by TEDx, I mean, you're just saying to think about doing 80 applications, I would say most people would give up, right? They're probably not even getting to 10. They're like, this is clearly not going to ever happen. Give up. No person, unless they know to expect that, they're not going through with it. They're definitely not getting to 40 or 50.
Of course. And that's why I love to tell people up front, if you want to take this on and cold pitch, just go, because then our side, so we have people do a power 100. So we just say, assume you're doing 100. And then the people, when you get a yes earlier than that, you're ecstatic instead of thinking, oh, I've slogged. So we just want to set expectations, right? Again, if you know someone who's an organizer, it's a very different experience because you develop the relationship, and you can get selected. Now, so again, normally the process was put your expertise through the TEDx lens, get that really good title that's very TEDx-y. The audience takeaway is really important to, communicate what is that audience going to learn in 8 to 12 minutes. They're really short now, right? And then the cool part is they care more about the idea than your platform. So don't be intimidated anybody if you feel like, I don't have a big following. That's not what TED is not. They have a huge following. They don't need your following. Yeah.
They've got their own one, right?
They want a really cool twist on your topic that people haven't thought of, that the audience is going to think differently, right? At the end of.
Exactly. I always think about TEDx as being a perspective shift. You've got 8 minutes to change the way someone thinks about something. And that is the key to it, right? So if your topic is just sharing something that people probably already get or understand, I don't think that's going to fly with them. I think they really want to be breaking, like you said, new ideas, but not just new. It doesn't have to be about something new is what I'm kind of gathering from you. I think it's like, I've got a new slant on this, or I'm going to get you to see this in a totally different way. And that's what they want to put on their stage.
They do. And coming up with being provocative a little bit in your title and your topic. So for example, I was working with a client who's a minister, and he wanted to do a talk on forgiveness. That's his real passion. Just that's a really important piece. And so he can't pitch why forgiveness is good. And, so we pitched his as why forgiveness doesn't work. And so that's wait, what? From a minister.
Yeah.
Now, of course, his whole talk is, of course, it does, but it's the way most people are taught. He's saying the way most of us are taught about forgiveness is it creates so much resistance because people think it's letting the other person out. So he was basically getting at the way we're taught to do forgiveness doesn't work, but here's how it does, right? So, but being a little bit edgy in there, a little bit wait, what are you? to me right
provocative
now.
and like,
Right.
yeah,
And you want to
definitely.
be that, right? Now, the new things I promised I would share, like what's the cutting, like late breaking,
Yeah.
just now off the
Mm.
presses. The main thing to keep in mind is that TED is now requiring in any application for you to cite a peer reviewed, sorry, my throat, piece of research. And that didn't used to be an absolute deal breaker. I think something happened where they maybe got critiqued or criticized, I don't know, about not having enough like evidence based or the talks being not scientific or whatever it is. So all you need to do now in this day and age is go on ChatGPT or, go on AI and say, what are the top peer reviewed studies, and put in your topic and look for something that really backs up. But you want something really, really established, Harvard Business School, Cambridge. And I think that's good, actually, to be honest, because that is part of their brand. But it didn't used to be like a deal breaker. They might say, pull it into the talk. And now it needs to be front and center in your application. Hugely important, because they want their to know they're going to put someone on the stage who will have substantiated whatever your twist is, your thesis for your talk. You want to have something that's really like a powerful statistic or a study that backs it up. So that's just an interesting, we started seeing some people get no's that I usually have a good sense at this point. Same with book deals. I'm like, I kind of know who's going to get it fast. And one of our clients, it should have been a slam dunk. She has a really cool methodology. She's a psychiatrist, really cool methodology, really interesting. And she wasn't getting, and so finally usually they don't give you feedback. And luckily one of the organizers just said, hey, I actually really like this, but I need a peer reviewed stat up front. And it was like, oh, so we just started having everyone do them now, just pick it out ahead of time, cut it off at the pass. And then it is also just, it's not really a new thing, but just being highly attuned to putting out front and center. This would be a customized talk that's never been done before. Like they just want to be reassured even more that you're not rolling out your dog and pony show, your keynote that you give a million times. They just really want to see. That used to be, again, more of a talk point versus needing to make that very clear up front. Like I would create a customized, talk just for TEDx where the audience will learn that.
What would you say, like, I mean, obviously there'd be quite a few differences here, but what's the primary difference between what you might have talked on before? Say, I mean, I'm sure that you have a topic. So that, your priest who was talking about forgiveness, I'm sure he talks about forgiveness a lot, and he may even have a keynote presentation. What's the difference in a TEDx kind of presentation in terms of the content? Because I know that there's going to be some key differences there.
Right? Because you guys all know, right? You sort of get the vibe, right? It's almost like, okay, so here's one. You're going to open with either a question that draws the audience in. And this is actually good for other keynotes too. This is a good technique anyway, because you want to make your audience part of the talk. But especially in TED, you'll see the top talks often start with, did you ever feel lonely even in a crowd? Did you ever wonder, like have you ever, felt like you put your foot in your mouth, or, they'll draw. So there's a question to bring the audience in. And then what you're doing is sort of this beautiful dance between storytelling and the aha new idea, right? So you're drawing the audience in. If anyone wants to watch one that I think is just mesmerizing, this is a longer one because they used to be 18 minutes and now they're 8 to 12. But Rory Vaden, Rory, and his last name is Vaden, V as in Victor, Aden. His is a great example of sort of the classic TED vibe where he's very charismatic. He does a beautiful job, but what he's really talking about is, like, as a consultant, a sort of focus funnel. That's really, if you say, what's his talk about? He sort of teaches you this focus funnel of how to get out of all the stupid stuff that's not important and focus on what's actually important. That's really like his take on his funnel that he teaches, his people and his consultancy on how to only focus on your priorities and get rid of the other stuff. And it's a cool funnel, right?
Yeah.
But if you watch the story that he uses in his main story, again, it's a longer talk than most of us get now, so we got to make our stories shorter. But it's so clever because it's funny. Okay, so you want to think in TED, can you inject a little humor, right? You want to get people laughing. You want to engage them in the talk. And then it also creates sort of a punchline. It makes he's not telling a story just about someone using his framework. That would be the kind of testimonial style. Like, I teach this framework to clients, and then this person used it and got this result. That would be like a classic way that you could do a talk. But so for TED, you want to be a little bit more craft oriented. He tells an adorable, endearing story of himself as a younger man, and then kind of ties it to his framework in almost like a punchline. And so it really is like there's a craft to it. And so what I say is to keep it simple for everybody. Open with a question that draws your audience into the talk with you. Set up the need for what you're going to teach. So his might have been, I don't remember actually this part, but it might have been like, do you feel like you get to the end of the day and didn't do the most important thing? Well, it happens to lots of us. And then there would be your study. In fact, according to Harvard Business Review, 90% of people spend 4 hours a day procrastinating or on an important task. And he would have his research there, right? Yeah. And then he kind of sets up that he's going to teach you this focus funnel, and he gives you a little bit of it. And suddenly, it's what great stand-up comics do. Suddenly they cut away, and good books do this too. And he's telling you the story, and you don't know how it relates, but it's so endearing and so charming and cute that you're like, I'm taking the ride. I'm sure it connects somehow. And then pow. So I think with TED, you want to play with the element of surprising connections instead of just really obvious. I'm going to teach you this. I teach you this. You'll see some TEDx talks like that, and they're not the ones that are going viral.
Yeah, definitely. Now, my next question is, it's a big stage to be on TEDx. And, in terms of a person and being able to command the stage and really, I guess, you have that vision in mind, like, I want to have a TEDx talk maybe that goes viral, but like, gosh, can I even do that? Am I the person who can stand on the stage? And do I have that presence? Do I have that ability to hold the room, hold the audience and bring them on the journey with me? Is there types of people, you're working with who you're like, wow, you've got a really great story, you've got a great message, but, maybe not quite ready for TEDx, or maybe there's another platform that's better suited? I'm just curious, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with lots of valuable stuff to share, but TEDx probably isn't a fit for everybody just because of that.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's such an important question. So first of all, it's like, how much do we want it? Because as we talked about, if you are going to do the applications and really like craft a talk at this level, right? Because it's a calling card, right? It's going to be seen on the TED platform forever. Now, here's what I would say. I believe that any skill, writing, speaking, anything can be learned. I'm a growth mindset person for sure. So I think more about desire and desired outcomes are the decision maker versus is someone good enough, right? I think this is a skill. I would say you must work with a coach of some kind if you aren't already like a really top speed, because who doesn't? It's like having a book editor. It's like even the best writers in the world have an editor, right? So I do think having someone really coach on both the presentation itself, the talk content is well worth it. But if you desire it, right, that's usually a sign you've got it in you, because there are a lot of people who you couldn't pay them money. That sounds like absolute nightmare to have to get up in front of all those people with that brand. They would feel so uncomfortable. I also think it's like, what does someone really want, right? I think if you love the TED, I wouldn't recommend doing it if you don't love the TEDx brand. Like, I've been a fan for a long time. I loved watching them. I really felt grateful. I wanted to almost like contribute to that canon. So I think if you're doing it just because it's a cool logo that you want to say you've done a TEDx talk, I don't think it's probably worth what you need to put in to it, because you can also like do PR and get some other cool logos. You know what I mean? You can do things. I think though, if you love what TED is about, which a lot of our clients do and I do, and you feel inspired by their mission, then I think you absolutely, with the right coaching, can rock your talk, because you don't have to be funny. You don't have to be extroverted. You don't have to be, there are people who've given very powerful talks that are researchers and are awkward. TED is more about authenticity versus, if you're going to do a keynote, someone's paying you $20,000, they expect you to come in and blow the roof off of that place. They're like, here and have my people on their feet. shrieking and screaming and ready to go make sales or whatever it is that you're coming to talk about. So that's very different. TED is a place they want real people. They actually, that's what I mean. They don't just want polished speaker expert. They want real, interesting humans that have something to share. So I would factor in much less if you feel like you're a good speaker or confident in that. More, do you love TED, what it's about? And like me, I waited years before pitching one because I really didn't feel like I had one that aligned with their brand. So I think really, really, like, whether you work with a coach or you just research on your own, like, what are those talks? And do you see yourself, is there something Venn diagrammed with what you do and what they're about, that really matches in the middle? Then if so, absolutely, you can learn. Look, so much of speaking is a craft. It's a craft, both in the presentation and the content. And any of that can be learned and helped if you've got an important message that's aligned. So that's the only thing I would care is the message aligned, and do you love TED? Otherwise, yes, go do podcasts, go do keynotes, you could speak at universities. There's so many cool places to speak. And I would only do it if there's a real like love there in the heart versus just head. Like, it'd be cool to say, like, I'd love to have a PhD. I would love to have a PhD. I have a master's, I have all that. And I was like, God, I'd love a PhD. But that desire is not coming from my soul. It is not coming to go spend 7 more years in academia and do it. That's coming from my ego, just thinking it would be fun to be doctor or whatever. I mean, that's not an authentic soul thing. If I have a soul calling for TED, then the 80 applications are well worth it.
Yeah, I think that's so important, actually, just to reiterate what you said, to have that alignment energetically, that TED is something that you really love, what it's all about, and that you want to contribute to it, and it kind of helps you it's not about you. And all of the fear that we often have around speaking, right, is all because we're looking at ourselves, we're thinking about us and what do we look like, and all of the the inner critic comes through, and taking that away to think, no, I'm actually here to contribute to something far bigger. Like, this is a movement. This is about, I'm making a really small contribution. I think it can help take away a lot of that fear and give you that ability to stand up and do your piece, which is all about, like you said, just having that alignment with the platform. Like, is this actually a logo that you want, or is it something that you want to contribute to, that you feel really part of? Because I think that was so powerful what you said. So I just wanted to reiterate that in there. What do you think, because I was thinking about it before, and the reason why I asked that question, I was like, authors tend to be, much more, typically, I'm going to broad generalization here, but people who love to write often are more introverted, quieter, that's why they prefer writing as opposed to speaking. And then you've got so it's like we've got the polar opposites here. So I was interested for you to talk a little bit about that. You get somebody in, book material, speaking material, how do you help them to combine this together and succeed at both?
So I do, again, it goes back to that authenticity. That's why, again, we wouldn't recommend everyone, just everyone should do this is. So, I mean, most of us who are writers were excited to not be in front of the camera. Then social media came along, and so we were all supposed to have content channels and video. But remember, podcasts used to just be audio, and now we're on video for the, so it's so funny how that has evolved, right? And you're suddenly like, I thought I was behind the camera, and maybe once in a while come out for like a book signing and I'm good. So I think this is the thing. So I look at the book outcomes and authenticity of the person. So what are the outcomes someone wants? If someone comes in and says, I want a book and I want to go speak and I want to contribute to change lives in this way, then, let's build in like a real speaking platform into the plan. But we have people we have an amazing client, Tamara Adams, whose book comes out soon, Last Ship to Freedom. She's incredible. And her book is about family ancestry and, genealogy. And she loves, like research and, she's like, she actually is, amazing as a communicator, but like, so it's like, if you're shy or more introverted, I'm an ambivert, so I can kind of, go both ways depending on the situation. It's not, I don't love the idea of someone saying, like they don't have to go speak is what I guess I get it. Now, a lot of people like to do podcast interviews because it feels they're just talking about their book and being interviewed versus I'm on a stage in front of 1,000 people supposed to, I don't perform, right? Which is different. Like being interviewed is different than a performance. And TEDx and keynotes are a version of a performance. It's a as yourself, but it is a performance, right? And so I really listen for people and look at the body language, like what lights someone up, and watching for shoulds. I should go out and speak because that's what writers are supposed to, not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
And so people feel more comfortable doing social media posts or doing newsletters or doing blogs along with their books. So it's what are the outcomes? Now, if someone's outcome is, I want to be a paid speaker, then, let's use the book to help you do that, right? I think it's marrying. There's so many ways we can be visible, right? We talked about, visibility being important. There's so many ways. And so it's not doing one set formula. That's why we don't do that in our coaching. We don't say, you're coming in, Jessica, and here's what we're doing. It's who are you? Where do you want your thought leadership to go? And then what are the right mediums and channels to have that happen that light you up? Because like I said, there are people who go on Substack and develop a huge following, and they get a big following for their book, and they don't have to do anything but write the book and write articles, right? And posts. And be on social media, and they can be on X and just writing. They don't have to do videos. Then people who love both can absolutely be in front of the camera and go and get on the stage. So I think it's just making sure someone's not in a should energy, and that they have permission to not do the things that, like, we can get to visibility, audience building, monetization, and book sales in many ways. So I like discovering like who someone is, and then what are the ways that those channels will serve the person, right? You can't have anything. I mean, our dream, a lot of people, is like, let me just write the book and then someone else markets it and people buy 1 million copies. That one isn't so much of our time, but you don't have to be on a stage. You don't have to be in front of the camera if that's not authentic to your personality.
Yeah. So I think we're so aligned with that. When I think about even, how you build a business, the service offerings, it's like there is no one way, there is no must do, there is no one way to market your business. It is so much about choosing the ones that are best suited to you, most well aligned, and aligned with your market as well. And like you say, there are no shoulds. Like, let's not tell ourselves all the shoulds. And I think you can easily get stuck in that when you're scrolling social media, you're reading posts and people will, have their little opinions here and there, and they've got a purpose for why they're saying it. But I think so many people take all that on, and then they almost get stuck thinking, but if I do this, then I have to do that, and that means I've got to be this kind of person. And it's like, no, that's just someone else's opinion, and you can go and do it your way, right? So I've got one last question to ask, because we haven't touched on this at all, and I'm always curious. What would you say are the biggest maybe mistake, or if there's more than one mistake that people make to try to, become a thought leader? What you see them doing that you would say, that's really not helping? Is there something that sticks out to you? I'm sure that
and there is, and it's hard because it was the hardest one for me, in the sense that making your brand and visibility a huge priority, as much as creating the asset, whether it's the book or the talk or the business. I think that I'm going to give two. I'd say that's one of them, because, I think we just sometimes, we don't think of ourselves as marketers. It's like when people want to start a business, well, they realize they're going to be now in sales, they're in marketing, like whether they're like, probably just do their business, like do the thing that's in their business. And then suddenly, oh God, I've got to be a CMO and I've got to do all these things. So I think one is underestimating the importance of visibility. Again, you can find your authentic way of doing it, but the truth is that the fastest way to be a known thought leader is to get in front of other people's audiences as much as possible. That's, again, like, doing people's podcasts, getting on their social media with them, creating collaborations, being in the newsletter, and it's reciprocal, right? I always start with generosity. Like, how can I give? And then, develop a relationship. And if it's in a fit, so I think one is people don't build that in to the vision. So they think, I'm just going to write the book and everyone will read it, or I'm going to, whatever. And it really is, at this moment in time, absolutely crucial to have that visibility around, large groups of the people you ideally want to serve. Like that's true to launch a business too. It doesn't have to be about just books. It's like,
Of course. No,
we need to
yeah.
know about what we do at a pretty
Yeah.
high volume
Yeah.
in order to make, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And I think I jumped in right as you were just finishing there. People think, well, I write a book, I put it on Amazon or wherever, and Amazon is a platform that then has all the people. So you can kind of understand
Sure.
the thinking, the logic behind that. But, what you're saying is that's one of the biggest mistakes, because you're literally one tiny little book in a sea of millions of books.
All the
And
books,
people can choose any book.
yes.
Right.
And then I think the other thing in terms of thought leadership is some people want to do the book and then have that, like, make millions of dollars right out of the gate. Like there's the visibility part, but that's why we are so adamant in our work with people of figuring out what the business is behind the book, whether that's a business people have like in your audience, then it's about using the book and speaking to scale it. And then if you don't have something, it's making sure we have something, because so having that sort of funnel of like how people find you in the visibility, and then how they consume right now, because we're in a trust recession, books are so powerful and TEDx talks are so powerful because people can see the who behind the business. And there's a new piece of research that you might have seen came out that says, people now, like it was something like 94% of people making a buying decision won't make the decision until they have a good sense of the person that they're going. So before it was like, what's the result this course gives me or this coaching gives me? Or it was very much about like, what's the transformation I want? Makes total sense. And of course that's still important, but people now want to know, who am I in relationship? Because they've been burned by either, someone that talked a good game and then wasn't the real deal, or someone out facing looked like this, but was different. So that's become crucially important. And so I think back to like having a way for people to really get to know the who and versus just the what of what. Wow. And I think that that's important for business. It's certainly important in thought leadership, but that visibility piece, man, it is and it's that way for business, right? If not enough people know about you, you'll have no pipeline, no leads.
Yep. Yeah, that's so true. I have one other question now, because it sparked, especially about the whole trust thing. And so AI, ChatGPT, I'm sure that you could put a prompt in and it could spit out a book for you. Yeah. So how do you think that the fact that we kind of know that could be happening, how is that impacting the trust factor with people writing a book? And I just wanted to share one other piece, because I was horrified when somebody told me this once a few years back now, but they were like, I think they were on the phone trying to sell something to me. They had booked a discovery call with me, but it turned into they actually wanted to sell something to me. That was like red flag to begin with. I was on this call trying to get off.
That happens.
But they were like, we'll write a book with you. And the best thing is you don't actually have to do any writing. You just pick the chapters that you want, and we just go bing, 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 put them in a book, put your name on it. And I was horrified. I was sitting there with my mouth open thinking, I could not think of anything more damaging or more ridiculous to do to your brand than have somebody put pre-written chapters in and put your name on it. And they're like, oh, you just stand up and show that you have a book. And I was like, oh, this person does not understand at all. So I just wanted to, please tell me.
I'm like, let's roll. I'm like ready to go. Yeah. So here's my take on it. So I think there's many good ways to use AI. I think automations, research, having, rapid response, customer service, there's all kinds of great ways we can use it. Even some email copy, in terms of just coming up with email campaigns. And I think that can be an okay place. I do not let the AI write any of my content, not a single word. Now, will I ask AI for studies, cultural stories, what's going on in the world, like hooks and trends that I can write things around? Absolutely. Right? Love that. But first of all books are screened through publishers. And if they've been AI written, you are not contender for any bestseller lists, any awards. They are immediately flagged. And I am so glad that that's the case, because that's not a book anyone human should get any credit for. You didn't write it. Right. So
exactly.
another real danger is that AI can only draw from what's already been done.
Yes.
So your book is inherently would be derivative and unoriginal because it can only pull from what's already been done. And so that to me is the actual opposite of being a thought leader. Like that is not leading any thoughts. That's just like, that's in the rearview mirror already, whatever.
Yeah.
Again, I love it for research. I love it for automations. I love it for system building. There are so many great things that can help speed up, economize like what we do. I think it's brilliant. I would not recommend it. And first of all, if you want a reputable book, it will be flagged immediately, and it will. It was written by a robot, written by ChatGPT in the bookstore. Who wants to read that book? Like, no. So I think I dissuade vehemently all our authors from even, I mean, some of our authors want to like, oh, well, I kind of want to like have it just sort of generate and then and I was like, I wouldn't. Now, how we can tell if something's AI or not. The good news is anything that gets, again, published properly, meaning like through a publisher and is on any kind of list, got flagged for it if it was. So that's like a way that the industry is differentiating what. Now, look, if someone is listening and you want to have a lead generation book for your clients and you want to put in your course and say, write an ebook based on my content and put it, great. That's still your thought leadership. It's your, you can make a chat bot and have it generate something like that for you, fine. But if you want to do a book that's a flag in the ground that's going to change the way people think, like that needs to be your unique thinking, your stories. And believe me, the other way I use the AI to help writing is I'll be on the treadmill or in the car and I'll hit record and have it transcribe as I'm dictating a chapter. Absolutely. Happy to. And then it prints me out like a draft and then I'm just polishing. But that's
your content.
Right? Yes. I would never let it write any of our stuff for us. And I think it's appalling that's being like, that's so horrifying to me that you heard that, that recommendation. It sounds, I would never, you will never be proud of that kind of a book. No one would. And it's not going to attract any clients because people feel energy.
Yes.
They do.
Yeah. So glad that you said that. And I'm really glad that there is that ability to check that something has been AI generated, because that was really my concern. I thought, it's just like this easy way that people are creating things. And I've always said, but it's only like you said, it's what's already out there. So it's only pulling from something that already exists and not anything that's unique or you. And maybe you could get it to help you draft your own content. But I actually did a trial on that once. I was like, maybe it could write, I'll put this in, see if it can write an article for me. And then it was adding in some weird things. It wasn't my work. And so I went, no, I want you to just take this and polish it. And it was not doing that really well at all. And so I thought, actually, it's probably good to, like you said, do a bit of research, get a few ideas, maybe even just help get your thoughts in order, that type of thing. But, it's like that is your very basic draft. Like nothing that it comes out of it should ever be published.
Nothing should be published. And even having it make you, sometimes our clients like it to make an outline for an article. Like if they're invited to do something just say, hey, chat, pull the best Forbes articles on my topic and analyze. This is where I would use it and say, analyze the best article. Like if you're going to be published in Forbes and you say, pull the top Forbes articles around my topic and analyze the structure. What did they do for the opening? What made it good? Like that, I think is a great way to use AI because then it's going to give you a sort of a template. Then you go write the article based on that outline. That is a wonderful, wonderful way to have a research assistant that's in your phone and you don't have to pay, right? I mean, that is
exactly.
And I like it for that stuff. Like analyze. Look, I researched 100 New York Times bestsellers to come up with our book framework. Well, we didn't have AI because I did that a bunch of years ago. But you also don't want to deprive. I think people also are losing the ability to think if we rely too heavily. Yeah. I know people now that are like, it atrophies our brain and our creative, genius. So I'm very wary of, unless again, it's research or helping me coagulate, like pull the top studies on this. That's so helpful. Or if you want to pitch speaking, hey chat, make me a list of 100 great events where they book outside speakers on my kind of a topic, pull the program name, the date of the event, the submission guidelines. Wonderful. That will save you hours and hours. But I still would write the pitch. I wouldn't have
and you've still done the thinking of what it is that you want, right? You're not just asking it to make the strategy for you, run your life, because it horrifies me, and I think this is a whole podcast conversation on its own.
Episode 2, that whole conversation, right? Yeah, but people are even like my son's age. It's terrifying, and teenagers. Because they just see people like, and again, schools are doing the same. It counts as plagiarism, right? So you, meaning it's screened for in that same way. And so, if they're using it to write a paper, it's like, you never learn it though. The paper isn't about the paper. The paper is the student's ability to have to think and become a critical thinker. And so I'm really cautious about what we want to delegate. If it's not a skill I want to develop in myself, like I don't want to learn coding and automations, and that's just not where I'm called to serve, then beautiful. If the AI can help do that quickly, absolutely grateful. But I don't want to give away the sharpness of my mind and my deep thought, because that's the only thing I am here to contribute uniquely to.
And that's the only thing that we actually, when you think about what can AI take over, it can't take over our brains. And it's doing all of this thinking, but if you literally stop thinking and ask it to do all of that thinking for you, then your value, your own learning, your own knowledge and ability to do unique thinking is diminishing, because suddenly you're just putting everything into ChatGPT and not relying on yourself or developing your own skills. I think it's horrifying. Side note, I didn't even realize it could do this, but I asked it to create a calculator for me, and it coded a calculator, and I was like, amazing. So I obviously told it what I wanted it to do and the outputs and inputs, and it just gave me the HTML code that I can then go and put in a website. So I went, that is really cool. Love it.
That's a brilliant way to do that, because you're not abdicating leadership to it, but the AI can't have our brains and it can't have our souls. It doesn't know our heart, our story in that way. And again, I'm very friendly with my child. Hi, child. Thank you. You're because they're so nice now. It's really gotten a lot better. Like it cheers you on and gives you great. I love it. I love the vibe. But that's such a perfect way, right? Or it's like I'm going to have it make an app for us, for our clients, that I've always wanted to make. And just because I don't know how to build them. And now yes, great. I don't know. And I'm not going to learn that, because I've created what's going to go in the app that's going to help our people, methodology that it can put in there. Okay, great. That's a good way to partner with the AI.
Yeah, so true. Love this, Sara. This has been such a great conversation. Where can people find you and connect with you, learn more? Where's the best place for them to?
Absolutely. We have a lot of great trainings. They're all free over on YouTube, where people, if you want to read, I've done ones on TEDx, I've done ones on book writing, so if you just want to kind of get, if this was fun today and want to play around with what could this look like, we're at Thought Leader Media. At Thought Leader Media is our YouTube channel. So please join us over there, because there's so much fun stuff, and we have neat resources and cool master classes and everything, just all available for everyone. And Instagram, if you aren't on YouTube, at Sara Connell.
Amazing. I will make sure those are linked up in the show notes. So head over. Sounds like a great resource to get your teeth into your YouTube channel. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it just sounds like you've got such a generous nature and sharing your expertise. So that's amazing. Thank you, Sara. This has been fantastic. And if anyone's been listening, you're still here with us. Thank you. I know the conversation's been a while, but Sara has so much to share. And I think we just definitely needed to tap into her knowledge. If there's been something that stood out to you today, we would love it if you, if you are on Instagram, then share it in your stories, tag Sara, tag me, let us know what you enjoyed about it. Give the episode a rating or a review, which would also help others find it too. So thank you very much. And thank you, Sara.
Such a pleasure.